and welcome back to another Sims 3 Speeds build series. So just a little reminder real quick, don't forget to leave your comment down below or a question for me that you would like to ask for my 500 subscriber video that I plan on doing hopefully here pretty soon. So you still have, I don't know how long, some days I get quite a few subscribers and other days it's a little slower, so the sooner the better. Go ahead and get your questions in right away. That way you know you can get it answered when I go ahead and do that. What we're working on today is a cemetery for the Mystic Church. And the Mystic Church lot is a lot that my sim built for the Ground Up series, from the Ground Up series. So if you've been watching that, you've already had a little bit of a sneak peek at it. This took me a total of about a little over 5 hours to build. So even if I sped it up really fast, it still was at 40 minutes and I didn't want to do two separate parts. So I thought, why not put it in as two separate builds altogether? So basically what we have is we have the church is going to be one build. So that'll be next week. And then this week today we are doing the cemetery. As you can see, there is a little bit being worked on that's not the cemetery, just because I really didn't feel like taking it out. I didn't figure it was really that big of a deal. It's just some sidewalks and stuff for the church. But for the most part, it is the cemetery, which is what we're working on right here. This lot is actually a 64 by 36, so it is a very large lot. I don't know, to be honest, how many worlds have lots this big. You might have to put in a custom lot size, and even that might be a little tricky. So, but it is a really big lot, and because of that reason, that's why I decided to go ahead and put a cemetery in here as well. I don't know how much of this matters in game because it's a community lot. You can, I believe, purchase it if you have the funds. But the purchase price from what I saw in game is not the same as the build price. But if you buy the build price when it's fully furnished is 156,000 simoleons, and unfurnished is going to be about 96,000 simoleons. So I'm not exactly sure where the cost is when you go to buy it in game, but that gives you at least a little bit of an idea. It did end up costing Shadow quite a bit. I had to pause the build, and we had to do a couple of days worth of working for him because he was running out of money. He didn't have quite the funds to build this all in one go. So at least I think he may have, but I was cutting it pretty low. So, but again, this is a cemetery. The cemetery is going to also have, I'm putting in the pond right there. It's going to have regular fish in there during the day for your Sims to fish. And it's also going to have the death fish for your Sims to fish. And I think you have to do that after midnight. I'm not sure. Don't take me for it exactly on that time. I know it's really late before the death fish will appear. The death fish is used to make ambrosia. I think you have to make the death fish into something. You know, it's been a really long time. I've only made the ambrosia cake. I think it's a cake. I've only made it once. And that was a really long time ago, and I don't quite remember the process, but you do need the death fish, and I thought, well, this just seems gloomy enough to have the death fish in it and a good place to put it. So the cemetery is right out front where all the tombstones and stuff are. I did end up going in later. It's not in the video, but I did end up going in later, and I did add a couple of dead Sims to the cemetery. So you should, if you put this in on a full moon, you should have, I don't know when they appear exactly, but I think they appear on a full moon. I'm not sure. But you should get a couple of Sims that will come out. There will be a toddler Sim, I believe, that will come out. And I think a couple of older Sims. I don't know if I put in a child Sim or not. I don't think maybe I did. I can't remember, honestly. There's about 3 or 4 Sims that are actually in this cemetery. A couple on this side and a couple on the other side. So, but their tombstones will have their names on it. So if you want to look for them, their tombstone will have their name. So just doing a little bit of terrain paint. And if you didn't notice, the speed build is not sped up my normal speed. That's why it's going a little bit slower. And you can probably see a little bit more of what it is that I'm doing. But that is because this portion on its own was only about a 30-minute build. So to speed it up at my normal speed, we would have had maybe 5 minutes. And as you can see, we're 5 minutes in and I hardly got to say anything to you. So that really would have been really fast. So I thought if I sped it down just a little bit slower, that it would, you'll be able to see a little more of what I'm doing. I have to get a lot of things from, I believe I'm in Buy Debug right here to get the tombstones. So because you can't get them anywhere else unless the sim dies in the world. And since we didn't have a mausoleum to start with in this world, I didn't have any sims to get any tombstones. So, but now that we have a mausoleum, we should start getting some tombstones and stuff hopefully in there. But I'm probably not going to replace them in game just because that's a lot of sims that come out if you start replacing them. I guess for me, Sims 3 I love to play. It's one of my favorites. But unfortunately, it does have a lagging issue. And the more sims you have popping out at the cemetery, the more laggy it could, well, I should say the more they get stuck, because they don't just stick around at the cemetery. I've had them in the past go to other areas of the world. So, and sometimes they get stuck somewhere, and which of course causes problems. So this lot was actually quite fun to build. I don't really do cemeteries very often. In fact, I don't even know if I've ever created an actual cemetery in the past or not. I don't think I have. I've done other kind of creepy builds, but I've never actually made a cemetery. And the cemetery is actually kind of fun. So I did end up leaving some space open for sims to go in and out of the tombstone area here with the fence, because honestly I don't know if the sims will walk over that fence or not. It's a low fence. I mean, I would realistically think, they would just walk over it, but I thought just in case they don't, I thought I would just go ahead and leave a couple of spots open. Now, when I was doing this cemetery, I didn't really want it to be dark and gloomy. Now, I will have a little bit of fog that comes from the pond just because the death fish is in there and it just feels suiting. But I didn't really want the cemetery to be scary or ugly. So, I hope it's not. I don't know. Something about it being with the church. And the church is just, I thought, turned out really pretty and elegant. And I didn't really want the cemetery to be too much of an eyesore. So I tried to decorate it nicely to where it be, fairly pretty, I guess you could say. It's got a little sitting area right here. There'll be a few benches for your sims to sit and just kind of relax. But that's why I kind of have some of the trees. And there are trees that are not dead. I didn't want dead trees. So just, to try to make it look fairly pretty more than gloomy and scary. So, and unfortunately, I guess it depends on what you want to do with this lot. If you expect to have parties at this lot for the wedding, you will not be able to have it set as a cemetery. You cannot have a party at a cemetery, which I thought was a little odd. I did check that, but you cannot set the lot as an actual cemetery, because then you won't be able to have any wedding parties at it because of the church. So if your sims get the wish to visit, say, the cemetery on a full moon, coming here is not going to fulfill that wish, because it's not going to be set at a cemetery. I guess if you want to get that wish, you can quickly change it, the lot type, to a cemetery. But just remember to change it back, because you won't be able to have any parties. But that, that would be about probably the only way you'll be able to get that wish. I myself never do that wish. I could really care less about setting my sims to a cemetery, to be honest, because there's never anything in a cemetery to do. But, I mean, I've had my sims go in the mausoleum before, but, I mean, it really doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't really do anything. I didn't think anyway. But anyway, again, the whole back thing, or not having it be too gloomy or scary or anything, that's why I didn't choose any of the dead plants to put inside the pond. I chose some of the water lilies that had flowers and stuff like that, just to try to mostly just make it look a little overgrown more than anything. And now I'm just going to go ahead and try to decide what kind of lighting I would like with this. So I just went ahead and took some of these lights and kind of set them inside the poles there on the mausoleum, just to kind of make it look like the lights were actually in or on the mausoleum. So that's kind of what I did there. Just doing a little bit of the ground covering and stuff around the edges like I normally do, just to try to make it look a little bit better. I feel that having a little bit of dirt here and there, especially around where like buildings and stuff are, just helps make it look a little bit more dimensional, a little bit more realistic. So that's kind of why I try to do that. It's difficult to do that on the edge of lots. So sometimes you're fencing on the edge of a lot, like this fence here on the right. You can't really do that so much because it's not, you can't really color the outside of the lot. So I'm moving and changing these fog emitter things or whatever they are, because now we're in where Shadow got money and came back. So I noticed that the fog emitting was not really doing anything. So I went ahead and just kind of moved them up a little bit. They must have been in the water too far or something, because they weren't really emitting any fog. So I raised them up a little bit. And then I decided, you know, because it'd been a day or two since I was working on it, got new ideas, as that tends to happen. If you don't sit there and build all in one shot, coming back to it a lot of times gives you a fresh mind and new ideas, and that can sometimes help with your building. So, you know, any tips, any ideas you could possibly get if you just, you know, maybe just pause your build, save your progress, you know, and then come back another day. And sometimes you'll have, you know, new ideas on what you want to do. And putting these rocks in was just something a new idea that I had. So something that I do. I don't always do builds all at one time. Actually, majority of the time, unless it's a starter build, I very seldom build the entire build all in one sitting. It's usually, for me, this was probably a 3 or 4 day process to build all this. Usually it takes me a few days. The larger the build, the longer it's going to take me. So that's why sometimes I don't always get a build out every Friday. I do try, but sometimes anymore I just don't have the time. So, but I do really enjoy it, and I still want to put up videos, and I've always enjoyed posting on YouTube. YouTube, you know, it's definitely come around. I mean, I don't post quite as often as I used to, but you know, I do think I do a lot. I think some days, some weeks I skip, and I apologize that there's an entire week you won't hear from me, but that's because apparently I never had a chance to even do one video. Some weeks are just crazy like that. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put in some of the plants for around, because again, I wanted it to be pretty. So I wanted it to be luscious and have a little bit of color and some flowers. And, you know, I did not want it to be an eyesore for the church, because it's right next to the church, you know, and I wanted it to be pretty. So that's kind of where I was going with this. So it is not, if you're hoping for a gloomy cemetery or a scary cemetery, this, I'm hoping, is not going to be that. So we're coming up to the screenshots of just the cemetery here. I hope you enjoyed. Any comments or suggestions, go ahead and leave them below. And don't forget to leave your question for the 500 subscribers video that's coming up pretty soon. And I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye.